New York City, April 19, 1989. It was the kind of spring evening that makes the chaos of the city feel distant. Central Park, with its winding paths and blooming trees, was alive with people jogging, biking, talking, simply being. A place where the concrete of the city gave way to a rare patch of green. But that night, beneath the peaceful veneer, something horrific happened. At around 9 p.m., a 28-year-old woman named Trisha Meili, an investment banker with a bright future, went out for a jog. She never came back. She was found in the early hours of the morning, near death. She had been raped, beaten, and left unconscious in a ravine. Her skull was fractured, her body battered. She was in a coma, few believed she would survive, and just like that, the city erupted into a frenzy. The media descended on the story like wolves. The Central Park jogger, they called her. The attack became a symbol, a flashpoint. And within hours, the NYPD was under immense pressure to deliver justice. Police had detained a group of about 30 teens who had been roaming Central Park that night. Some had been causing mischief, throwing rocks, starting fights, acting out. But none were involved in what happened to Trisha Meili. Still, by the next morning, 5 boys, Kevin Richardson, Raymond Santana, Antron McCray, Yusef Salaam, and Korey Wise, were brought in for questioning. They were just teenagers, 14, 15, 16 years old. They were interrogated for hours, some for more than a day, without food, without sleep, without parents, without lawyers. Some were told others had already confessed. Some were promised they could go home if they just talked. They were manipulated, lied to, pressured. Eventually, each boy gave a statement. Their stories didn't match. The locations were off. The descriptions were vague, and they contradicted one another. But the police had what they wanted: confessions. Taped confessions. Emotional, stumbling, terrified words from boys who didn't understand what they were saying, or what they were giving up. There was no physical evidence tying them to the crime. The DNA found at the scene didn't match any of them. Hair samples didn't match, no fingerprints, no eyewitnesses. But in the court of public opinion, they were already guilty. The media coverage was relentless. Headlines screamed of wilding teens and a wolf pack. The boys were portrayed as remorseless, violent predators. Race became an unspoken but ever-present undercurrent. These were Black and Latino kids in a fearful, racially charged city. A real estate developer named Donald Trump spent $85,000 on full-page ads in 4 major New York newspapers calling for the reinstatement of the death penalty. He didn't mention the presumption of innocence or the absence of evidence. He called for blood. In 1990, the 5 boys went to trial. Despite the shaky confessions, despite the lack of physical evidence, despite all the inconsistencies, all 5 were convicted. Antron, Kevin, Raymond, and Yusef were sent to juvenile detention. Korey Wise, just 16 years old, was sent to Rikers Island, an adult prison. For years, they lived behind bars. They endured violence, solitude, shame. They missed school, birthdays, graduations, family funerals. They were children forced to survive in cages built for grown men. Meanwhile, the real perpetrator remained free. Matias Reyes was a serial rapist and murderer who had attacked several women around the same time as the Central Park assault. He had a pattern. He acted alone. And in 1989, he went unnoticed by investigators. 13 years later, in 2002, Reyes came forward. He confessed to raping and beating Trisha Meili. He wasn't seeking parole or a reduced sentence. He was already serving life. He said he had found religion and he couldn't live with what he had done. Investigators tested his DNA. It was a perfect match to the sample found on the victim. The case was reopened. The 5 men, now in their late 20s and 30s, were exonerated. The city's narrative collapsed. Their convictions were vacated, not reduced, not overturned on a technicality. Vacated because they were innocent, because the system had failed them at every level. But exoneration doesn't erase pain. It doesn't give back the years lost. The stigma, the trauma, the lives paused. Each man had to rebuild from nothing, carrying the weight of what had been done to them by the courts, the press, and the public. In 2014, after a decade-long battle, the city of New York settled a civil rights lawsuit filed by the men. The settlement was $41 million, about $1 million for each year they spent behind bars. But they didn't disappear. They became activists, speakers, educators. Their story, once reduced to tabloid headlines and mugshots, became a symbol of resilience and reform. In 2019, Ava DuVernay's Netflix series, When They See Us, told the world what really happened. It showed the boys as they were, vulnerable, frightened, manipulated. It showed the pain they endured, the horror of what was done in the name of justice. Millions watched. Many for the first time began to question how easily innocence can be stolen. Today, we no longer call them the Central Park Five. We call them the Exonerated Five. They are Antron McCray, who found peace in silence, choosing privacy over publicity. Raymond Santana, who became a businessman and advocate. Kevin Richardson, who works in youth programs and criminal justice reform. Yusef Salaam, who became a public speaker, a doctor of law, and in 2023, a New York City Council member. Korey Wise, whose story was perhaps the most harrowing, and who has donated millions to support the wrongfully convicted. They are no longer victims. They are survivors, symbols of what can happen when a system trades truth for closure. Their story is not just about one night in Central Park. It is about how fear, racism, and a hunger for quick justice can turn innocent boys into scapegoats. It is about a society that too often sees young black and brown children as suspects first and people second. It is about the power of the state, the fallibility of the system, and the human cost of getting it wrong. And it is about hope. Because even in the face of the worst kind of injustice, these men refuse to be broken. They remind us that we must always ask, who gets the benefit of the doubt? Who gets believed? And what are we willing to do to make justice truly blind? The Exonerated Five walk among us today, not as shadows of a scandal, but as beacons of truth. Let us remember their names. Let us remember their courage. And let us never, ever stop demanding a better system than the one that failed them. If you made it this far, tell me in the comments which case I should do next.